To round up tonight's coverage of a big day in politics, we're joined again from Holyrood by Colin. And here in the studio is Shone Craven, who is community editor and a columnist for The National, and Eddie Barnes, who's a political commentator and a former director of strategy and communications for the Scottish Consdervatives. Thanks for joining us. Shone, a narrow victory for Humza Yousaf. How much authority does he have as a new leader?
I think he does have authority. Yeah, we always thought this was going to be a close outcome. Nobody could call it. I think the fact that he got, more than 48% of the first preference votes says a lot about his popularity as the first choice of the party. But it was always understood that he would have to bring the members back together and reunite the party. I don't think given the huge support he has among MSPs, I don't think he'll struggle to assert authority.
And Eddie, how important are the next few days going to be for him?
Well, it's crucial, isn't it? I mean, he's got a lot on his plate. Pick a new cabinet, prepare for First Minister's questions, which is going to be gruelling after he's got to suddenly turn his attention to be a master of all trades, not just on health. But I think more than that, he's got to stamp his mark on his new leadership. You know, he has had some criticism during this campaign that he's seen as being kind of Sturgeon's man. He's also had some criticism that he lacks substance, and I think he needs to demonstrate, actually, as Alex Salmon said there, some clear kind of competence and clear seriousness about the way forward for his new First Ministership.
Colin, you already mentioned earlier you thought Neil Gray would be in his cabinet. Who else?
Well, I think he's talking about a big tent. I think there will be room there for Kate Forbes, certainly in cabinet. Maybe not in the same position, but certainly in there. I think the first announcement in cabinet terms that he'll make will probably be tomorrow. And I think my suspicion, I don't know this for a fact, but my suspicion is that it'll be Shona Robison as Deputy First Minister, because he singled her out in his speech today as someone whose wisdom and guidance throughout this campaign have been very valuable to him. I think there will also be promotions for people like Marie McCallan, Neil Gray that we've mentioned already, possibly even Jenny Gilruth. So there'll be some new cabinet faces there too.
So, Shona, what are the big challenges? Well, there are plenty of big challenges facing him. Just leaving aside independence for the moment, we'll come back to that. But in terms of domestic policy?
Well, health, obviously, he's leaving a very big job at a very difficult time, so that all eyes on who the new health secretary will be. Also education, I think throughout the campaign, when the topic of education's come up, he's very much emphasised the links between attainment and poverty. But I think we'll need to hear a little bit more on education policy because, extra food for children and extra child payments, that's obviously not addressing maybe what's going on in schools and whether there needs to be changes there. And so those will be the two big ones, I think. We've got energy. He's been talking in the campaign about things like ScotWind going forward, but I don't think that'll be something that he'll be talking about right away.
Plenty for him to tackle, Eddie.
Absolutely. I mean, I thought during the campaign Kate Forbes was the stronger candidate on the economy. I mean, she clearly kind of had a clear plan to deal with the economy. And that, for me, is the central issue. I mean, only last week we saw the Scottish Fiscal Commission, which is the kind of the official bean counters, if you like, of the Scottish economy, making it very, very clear that we are in serious trouble when it comes to paying for our public finances, and that given the ageing population, given the profile we have, that this is going to, essentially the public sector really needs to, it needs an injection of economic growth if we're going to wash our own face. So I would like to see from him a serious plan, as I say, for economic growth, to demonstrate that he's learnt from what he's over this campaign, that we need to have that economic growth in Scotland, otherwise we're facing some serious tough times ahead.
Colin, what do you think will be the most pressing things in his, I'm sure, very stacked in-tray?
I think we know all the pressing problems: cost of living, NHS, trying to find a strategy and independence. But there's one thing in terms of the challenges that I haven't heard anybody talking about, and that's the challenge of facing a level political playing field, which an SNP leader hasn't had to do for a very, very long time. Nicola Sturgeon was operating at a much higher level than most of her competitors. Humza Yousaf is on the same level as Anas Sarwar and Douglas Ross. They have not been willing to fear anybody in this SNP leadership context, nor should they. And I think because it levels the playing field in Scottish politics now.
Both Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmon failed to deliver independence. Can he, Shona?
I think he could. I think that his strategy of building up support, The strategy we heard during the campaign was about building up support and then seeking a Section 30. He seems to have made a snap statement that he wants to pursue that right away when asked by a journalist. But I think that is logically the correct approach. You shouldn't demand an independence referendum until you think you can win it. And, I would agree with Alex Salmond that the competent government, of course, has to be part of convincing people.
Eddie, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I feel as though Nicola Sturgeon left because essentially her independent strategy ran out of road. And what I've seen from Humza so far is essentially, well, I'm just going to go back down that same road, but maybe with a bit more conviction. I'm not sure that's going to work. I go back to this point about the economy, and this is where I thought Kate Forbes made a reasonable point. If you've got to kind of focus on long-term economic growth, if you're going to start convincing anti-independence voters that there may actually be a case for independence, and that is a long-term plan. It's not going to take, you're not going to be able to cross that line in the immediate term. It's got to be something you work on over a long term, and I think that's really what he needs to do if he wants independence to be a reality.
Do you think he'll feel under pressure to kind of take action quickly, though? There'll be, the supporters will want to see him doing something soon, won't they, Shona?
Well, he will, but at the same time, he has pledged to engage with the members and ask what they think. And also, with regard to some of Kate Forbes' promises, I'm not convinced, actually, the Scottish Parliament has the powers to necessarily do everything that she was promising. So I think there will be a bit of reality check there. But obviously, he'll work with the Cabinet colleagues, including Kate Forbes, on a plan for that, but also work with the membership. And I think that will be really important.